Samantha had always lived alone in her grandmother's house, a sprawling Victorian mansion on the outskirts of a small, sleepy town. It had been in her family for generations, passed down from one relative to the next like a cursed heirloom. She had heard the whispers about it when she was a child, stories about the things that lived within its ancient walls. But those were just stories, right? And after her grandmother passed, she was the only one left, so it became hers. At first, the house was everything she'd hoped for. The high ceilings, the grand staircase, the way the floorboards creaked beneath her feet as if the house itself was alive, welcoming her into its arms. But after a few weeks, things began to change. It started with the whispers, soft and indistinct, coming from somewhere deep within the walls. She thought it was just the wind, or maybe the house settling. But then, at night, she would hear them more clearly, like voices murmuring her name. Samantha, Samantha ... She would lie in bed, frozen, heart pounding, as the darkness swallowed the room. She told herself it was just her imagination. The house was old, after all, and old houses made strange noises. But then one night, the whisper came closer. It wasn't coming from the walls anymore. It was coming from inside her own room. She felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up as the voice grew louder, clearer. It was a low, guttural murmur, as if someone was standing just inches from her ear, breathing hotly against her skin. The voice spoke in broken syllables, repeating the same words over and over. It's time. Time to let them out. Terrified, Samantha leapt from her bed, rushing to the door. But the door wouldn't open. It was as if the house itself had sealed her in. Desperately, she turned to the window, only to see nothing. Not a single sign of life outside, just an endless expanse of shadow. The whispers started to crescendo into a cacophony, as if dozens of voices were now calling out to her, pleading, begging. In a panic, Samantha ran to the stairs, down to the cellar door, the one place her grandmother had always warned her never to go. But tonight, she had no choice. She had to know. The door creaked open with a dreadful groan, and as she descended the stairs into the pitch black, she could feel the temperature drop. A bitter cold wrapped around her, seeping through her skin, sinking into her bones. The smell of damp earth and decay was overpowering, but it was the sound that made her blood run cold. A faint scratching. Then a faint thumping. And then a scream. Not human. Something darker. Something that wasn't supposed to exist. It echoed in the darkness like the tortured cry of a soul lost for eternity. She stumbled forward, hands outstretched, until she reached the farthest corner of the cellar. There, hidden behind a rusted furnace, was an old wooden door, its surface warped and splintered, as though something had been trying to get out for years. The door was held shut with chains, thick iron chains, rusted and brittle from time and neglect. Samantha's heart beat so loudly in her chest that she thought it might explode. She reached for the chains, her fingers trembling, the whispers growing louder, more insistent. "Let us out, Samantha." With one final desperate yank, the chains snapped. The door creaked open, and she stepped back, horror freezing her in place as she saw what was inside. It wasn't a room. It was a pit. A dark abyss, one that seemed to stretch infinitely downward. And at the very bottom of it, there were eyes. Hundreds, thousands of eyes, all blinking in the dark, watching her. They were not human eyes. They were something ancient, something hungry. A voice, low and guttural, came from the depths of the pit. "Welcome home, Samantha." Suddenly, the floor beneath her feet trembled. The house was shaking as if something deep within it was stirring. The walls groaned, cracking open, and from the fractures more eyes appeared, peering out from the walls, the floor, the ceiling. Then the whisper returned. But this time, it wasn't just one voice. It was a chorus of voices, all chanting in unison. Time to let us out. Time to let us in. The ground buckled beneath her feet, and before she could scream, something reached out from the pit. It wasn't human. It wasn't anything she could recognize, but it had long, twisted limbs that slithered from the darkness like a serpent, grabbing hold of her ankles, pulling her closer, pulling her into the pit. Samantha fought, thrashing, but she couldn't escape. The cold was suffocating. The voices were deafening. Her mind shattered under the pressure, and in that moment, she realized something horrifying. The house had never been alive. It had always been the prison, the trap, and she had been its latest prisoner. In one final chilling moment, the darkness swallowed her whole. And then, silence. No whispers, no voices, nothing.